As if they don't have too much on their plate. The Kings of Combat Sports Podcast.
Neal.
And wait, they talk about the things they did that day. They'll analyze the work of Triple H. Rewind-A-SmackDown. 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 Rewind-A-SmackDown.
And hello and welcome to everybody listening on our free feeds, either on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, Google Podcasts, all this other good stuff. Wherever you're listening to us, welcome. You found Rewind-A-SmackDown with Ting and Neal Flanagan on another Friday night. Hello, Neal, once again.
Hello again, Way. Yes, summer guys, both of us today. We had a chat at the beginning of the show about getting out into the great outdoors. I think you've taken the sun better than me. I can see myself. I'm just looking at myself on the little sort of miniature screen, and I think I look a tiny bit sunburned.
Do you wear shorts? Are you a shorts guy?
I am, yeah. Funnily enough, I didn't wear them too much in Florida in February when I was there with Jordan, and it was very sunny and 24 degrees. I should have, but yeah, I like to wear shorts. I'm wearing shorts right now, actually.
Oh, yes, there you go. I was not a shorts guy for much of my life. And then like I only wore like black jeans for like a bunch of my adult life. And then at some point I just I feel like I only want to wear shorts when I'm outside now. So
it's very freeing.
That it is. But also beyond the fashion talk, we also got to talk a little bit about Jim Ross, the latest update on his health going into brain surgery this month, sounding a bit concerning. So discussing a little bit about that. MyAEW's latest edition of Maple Leaf Pro's Mayhem taking place relatively shortly on the new platform for US and international subscribers. And then we also have the latest on All In ticket sales. Sheamus, or should I say S. Farrelly, bidding goodbye to his WWE family and discussing a little bit about maybe our thoughts on his potential in a company like AEW. Also, the just announced return of Hangman Adam Page to AEW television on Saturday's Collision. So all of that in the Post Wrestling Cafe XL edition over at postwrestlingcafe.com, where, by the way, you can find right now a free edition of today's Pollock today's post audio news update, where John Pollock got a chance to speak to Neal Flanagan, author of the tremendous article talking about the Irish perspective on Conor McGregor this particular weekend. So the two of you just happened to have a bit of a longer conversation about that particular topic. Will you be watching the fights?
I'll catch some highlights. I'm not paying for it. In my part of the world, it's pay-per-view on TNT Sports. There's not a chance, I would put money down for this. But I do have Paramount Plus, and there are ways to to watch it on that platform, even though I don't live in the US. So
did you can you describe maybe in the past, did you get a sense of how big Conor fights used to be in Ireland?
Very much so. I mean, this guy was once a local hero, the plumber's apprentice from Crumlin in North Dublin, the local boy who done good sort of thing. And he, ascending from that to one of the bigger stars in sports, full stop. That's how he was regarded. And this way from Fight Network and 2013. I don't know whether you were at his first encounter with Holloway. I know that John was. That the Irish Army were there with the tricolours and en masse. That is not the case this time.
To this day, I've had the privilege of being in front of a lot of incredible crowd reactions. But to this day, I would still probably rank up as among, if not the top loudest crowd reaction I've been a part of, was his fight against Chad Mendes. Mm-hmm. And just being in that audience with the Irish going nuts, taking over Las Vegas. It was, to this day, one of the loudest ovations. And I even had a chance to follow them all throughout the MGM grand lobby afterwards. Yeah. And there's nothing like it. So to contrast that with what you are telling me about what the sort of buzz or lack thereof about this particular event in Ireland is very fascinating.
Yeah. I think the Nikita Hand case, of course, is the biggest factor in all of this, but people were beginning to lose their patience with this man before that. There's the assault on the elderly man in the bar, the guy who refused to take a drink of his proper 12 or whatever the hell it's called, his whiskey, and many other indiscretions. But the Nikita Hand case, as I touched on in the article, was top of the headlines for the entirety of the case. You know, the evidence was being broadcast into people's homes and all over the front of newspapers on a daily basis. And he is now, as I say in my article, one of the most thoroughly rejected people in Ireland. I dare say you still will see an awful lot of green, white and gold flags, but I dare say that will be largely Irish Americans rather than the traveling army that used to worship this guy.
So that is the discussion as part of Neal's article. Conor McGregor is selling America a comeback story, but Ireland is buying. It's also available as part of a discussion on today's post-audio news update, available to all members, actually for free, at postwrestlingcafe.com. All right, with all that said, let's go over to tonight's edition of WWE SmackDown. First of all, Neal, your reaction to CM Punk's championship win on Monday.
Okay, it was very Super Cena era stuff for me, and I say this as somebody, like, we discussed this last week way after SmackDown, that I felt that Adam Pearce's booking was borderline heel stuff. This is a guy whose own champions on his own show, Roman and Liv, have not been made to defend their titles since they won them at WrestleMania. And for him to make Sami defend on the show he doesn't belong to after only 9 days of winning it felt kind of like a shitty move. You can't really argue with it, though. Having seen Raw, the reception this guy got, the star power he undoubtedly has, he got that similar reaction tonight as we're about to get into because he kicks off the show. You know, if you're in business to make money and sell tickets and put the biggest matches that you can, and put your titles on the biggest figures that you've got, then I can see, you know, what they did.
Yes, I'm with you. I like, from a business perspective, you get it. I guess, like, seeing some of the reaction online to this move, you know, I guess you asked, should every decision be made according to business, according to who is best, right? Isn't that what CM Punk was arguing against all those years back? I still continue to find that to be really fascinating, that the guy who used to be arguing against moves like this is now in the position of being, well, like the Hogan or the John Cena, like, as you know, comparison point that's been made. So I was curious tonight to see if they would play on that at all, if they would, like, fan any sort of flames of, like, CM Punk possibly being a new, more of a corporate heel version of himself. And I guess maybe it depends. Well, let's talk about the show, shall we? So the show starts off, and by the way, this is from Oklahoma City at the Paycom Center, where tonight, according to WrestleTix, the tickets distributed was 6,533. So definitely small compared to, you know, your typical WWE television audience. Last time they were here in 2025 for Raw in November, they had about 9,612 tickets out. So definitely smaller. Did you notice that in the crowd, or did it sound?
I have to say I did not notice that in the crowd, and the crowd seemed extremely up for this show.
Yeah, agreed. Nick Aldis opens the show, and the crowd is already chanting CM Punk after a video recap plays. So just it gives you a sense that maybe this sort of sentiment about, like, people being against CM Punk as champion, that might be a vocal minority. So anyway, so the crowd is chanting CM Punk. Aldis apologizes for his behavior, Aldis's behavior, and he tells us that he's been reinstated. And CM Punk then appears. He is sporting a black eye. Aldis says, "Welcome aboard to SmackDown," and he gives him the floor. Punk says, "I missed you. And in the time I've been away, I've been negotiating with WWE, NBC, Universal, and the USA Network to come to SmackDown. And the negotiations just happened to be expedited on Monday when a title opportunity fell out of the sky." And he says, when title opportunities fall out of the sky, CM Punk catches them. Of course, referencing the promo he cut the night after WrestleMania 42. He intends on wrestling on TV and defending the title any chance he gets. And he knows there's a locker room of hungry and individuals who want what he has. So if you have what it takes, come and get it. And he addresses a few people in particular. He talks about Sami Zayn. He says, I saw what you said on social media. I'll give you that rematch. He talks about Gunther. He says, we're not strangers. I know I can beat you, so come get a shot. Brings up Finn Balor. Says, we wrestled twice, and you can have this shot anytime, any place. Also brings up Royce Keys, Damian Priest, Trick Williams, and before he can name any more, he is cut off by Cody Rhodes, who comes in. He's coming in and he's checking on Punk's shiner. He asks how his eye is, but Punk says, it looks worse than it feels, but what do you really want to talk about? Cody says the last time they spoke in the ring, this situation was reversed with with Cody having the title and the black eye. He references Punk's line about title opportunities falling out of the sky, but says some matches have been building for years. Punk says he always knew the two of them would face each other sometime, but probably almost didn't want to mention it because he didn't want it to come between their friendship. And he says if he's honest, he thought it would be a WrestleMania main event, but they don't know if they can avoid this anymore. So Cody says when he was the champ, he told Punk, just say when. And Punk steps up and just says, when? Cody says SummerSlam, and Nick Aldis right then and there makes it official. The main event of SummerSlam, Cody Rhodes versus WWE Champion CM Punk. Your thoughts overall on the segment and also the match itself?
Yeah, well, I enjoyed the way Punk used his star power and the adoring crowd to try and put over the fact that he's now on SmackDown and he's trying to elevate a few names that he was throwing out there. If you're looking for some corporate Punk stuff, he gave you a little bit of it here with this sort of negotiations with the allusion to negotiations with NBC, Universal, and WWE, and the list that brings him to SmackDown on the USA Network. It was a good promo between the two of them. They got there very quickly, it felt to me. Just straight away, it's official. This is the main event of SummerSlam. Even after Punk saying he wants to defend the title on television and, if you want it, come get it sort of thing. This felt a little to me like I thought there would be a detour at Saturday night's main event. We learn later on these guys are going to be involved in that show, but in a different way. I think they wanted to get this title match, the graphic up there straight away, because for viewers of Pollock and Thurston, SummerSlam tickets haven't exactly been flying off the shelves, and it feels like this is one of the biggest matches they can do. And so, yeah, they're
22,000
right away.
22,000 for the Saturday show, according to WrestleTix, in a stadium that can hold up to like 67,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, like similar to Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay, perhaps, facilitating an earlier title change just so they could get that graphic up there to announce the main event for Wembley. Maybe a similar case here where, announcing the main event for SummerSlam hopefully will, for them, drive a few more ticket sales. But even on top of that, I would imagine a few more sales to come in both of these cases. Yeah. I thought the segment was like good and simple. And yes, it rushes the match out there, but I think it does so in a pretty logically satisfying way. Like when you consider Cody was attacked and should have had this title shot anyway. So in like putting all those pieces together to make you feel like Cody is justified in getting the spot, especially like, bringing up the initial interaction these two had back in, after WrestleMania. Yeah. I found all of that very satisfying. Now, as far as like, were there any sort of like hints of like heel Punk? I certainly felt none of it here, not in front of this adoring audience who wanted to cheer CM Punk and certainly didn't seem to feel bad about Sami Zayn at all. Doesn't perhaps like negate the fact that there are a lot of unhappy people online and, those are people that might see both of these two men, Cody and CM Punk, as somewhat corporate representatives at this point. And those are the same people who probably want to see somebody fresh in the role, like a Sami Zayn. Yeah. So there's like, this is a match that I could see bothering some people who were hoping for fresher direction, not just with the same Roman, Cody, or Punk, up top. But I also think that's not the majority of people that will be watching SummerSlam, especially a show like SummerSlam, which is a lot more like WrestleMania to me, where you're appealing to people that aren't just like in the weeds and want to see like, you know, a new guy. They kind of want to see the most famous guy, in my opinion. I think it's the right match for SummerSlam.
I think so too. In if you're in WWE and you're charting your directions, I think this is a very logical way to go. And I think what you're talking about, I mean, strikes home to me because I'm one of the people who didn't love, as I already have talked about, the 9-day reign for Sami, because I just think I love the character work that he's been doing. He isn't, as we get to, he's not even on this show tonight, except for a clip. And there's a difference, I suppose, and we got it from this crowd. There's a difference between the mainstream audience and I guess the online audience, or those of us who analyze these shows and kind of, you know, are like you said, a little bit more in the weeds of it all.
Yes. All right. So I also really enjoyed, by the way, Punk lining out all his future opponents. You know, it built anticipation for all those matches, whether or not they happened for the championship. You know, hearing CM Punk mention of Royce Keys, I think means something a lot more. You know, and I have no doubt, like, you know, just given maybe their AEW history, Punk may have initially, like, I'm sure he wants that match with Royce Keys, and hopefully that'll be a strong showcase for him. So, anyway,
I think it elevates SmackDown immediately.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Do you think like Raw needs somebody in exchange to balance things out, or do you think this is balance with Punk on the show?
I think this balances out things a little better than the way they were, and I'm happy about that as being assigned to a Friday night. I don't know is the honest answer as to whether Raw needs a big name from SmackDown at this point. Cody might make his way there after SummerSlam, who knows? But we'll see.
Support for this podcast comes from NordVPN. There is a lot of wrestling happening every week. And if you're a completist like we are at Post, then you probably know how expensive it can be juggling multiple streaming services just to keep up. In some parts of the world, things are set up pretty well. Regions where WWE lives on a single paid streaming service, others where AEW fans can get their weekly shows and pay-per-views bundled under one subscription. But when those fans travel abroad, they lose access to those fully featured versions of those services that they rely on at home. And that's where NordVPN comes in. No matter where you are, you can open the app on your phone, laptop, or Apple TV, connect to a server of your country's location, sign into your existing account, and keep up with your wrestling the way you do at home. John and I have been using Nord for over 3 years now, and it's become one of the most reliable, must-have tools in our wrestling consumption. It'll probably be for you as well. You can grab an exclusive NordVPN deal by going to our custom link, nordvpn.com/postwrestling. You'll get a big discount on any 2-year plan, plus 4 additional months on top. As always, it is completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/postwrestling. You can find all the information in the episode notes. Get your exclusive deal and let them know you found them through us. Jade and the baddies are interviewed backstage, and Jade talks about asking for this match against Alexa Bliss tonight as a way to get revenge on Charlotte. She says she won't be responsible for what happens to Alexa, and you can put the blame on Charlotte Flair. We go to our first match of the evening, and it is between Finn Balor and Tama Tonga, former Bullet Club members, of course. Surprisingly, these two have never had a singles match together. I guess not that surprising when, you know, they've been stablemates, but the first time they've ever had a match. The last time they even shared a ring together was back in 2014 when Balor was prior to Balor joining the WWE. Tala grabs Balor's leg on the outside to stop a dive, leading to Tama and taking control throughout the commercial break. Balor hits the sling blade to block the cutthroat. Tala then distracts from the coup de grace. Tama hits him with the cutthroat, then a double underhook facebuster, which gets a 2 count. The crowd is certainly into Balor in this match. He comes back, hits the tope con hero on both Tongans outside, shotgun drop kick, and then the coup de grace for the win. What did you think about the match?
I thought it was a really solid match. This had the feel of two guys, like you mentioned, who know each other very well, haven't had really matches together and wanted to put on a show. And Tama, of the brothers, is clearly, to me, the most solid worker. God bless Tongaloa, but Tama Tonga is a solid in-ring guy, and these two really brought it. I felt there were elements of sort of New Japan strong style in here. There were also big elements of WWE booking in here, with the sort of Finn's first attempt at the coup de grace being just sort of, oh, there's Tama Tonga, I'm distracted, so I can't do it. But I thought this was a very solid TV match, yeah, like as I say, the first Tala distraction, a bit silly, but I can absolutely overlook it.
I totally agree with you. I thought it was a strong match. The crowd certainly ate it up, and they're reacting really well. I actually thought Balor came across better here as a babyface than he has. Maybe even dating back to the Punk match in Ireland. It felt like this was a special match for him. And the crowd really got behind his comebacks. So, for Tama, I thought this was among his stronger performances as well. Again, they didn't even dig into the history all that much, but you just kind of feel this was a bit more of a special one for the two of them. And maybe for that reason, this sort of clean finish. Well, yeah, clean. I would say clean, certainly, because even overcoming the Tama Tonga on the outside, Balor still won. So that almost feels like it's almost too early of an end to all of this. So I feel like they'll continue this, and I would just anticipate the Tongans being able to get their heat back somehow. Also makes me wonder if somebody like a Shinsuke Nakamura will be joining the program, at some point to turn this into a big "I know you from Japan" fest.
Yeah.
So.
I agree with that. I've been saying it for a while. I mean, Shinsuke's been missing in action, but I feel like he would fit into this mix very, very well.
Kathy Kelly is in the back with Carmelo Hayes, and Carmelo Hayes talks about Little Yachty, who says he agrees that he makes a great sidekick for Trick, but he says it makes sense since all of his top songs are only features.
Yeah, ooh. From the crowd for this.
What's your favorite Little Yachty feature?
There's just too many for me to mention, Way.
Okay.
Well, that's my final answer.
I'll give you till the end of the show to tell
Or
me.
I don't know any of them.
Oh, okay. So people talk about Trick's aura, but he says aura can't outwork someone who's been battle tested like Carmelo Hayes. He's not going to catchphrase you to death like Trick, but Melo don't miss. And that's not a catchphrase. That's a lifestyle. I thought very strong promo from Melo.
Me too. A very solid promo from Melo. And I can't let you go away from this segment without asking you the same question. What's your favorite Yachty?
I honestly don't have one. I know very little about modern rap, but I'm sure he's a very talented.
He did appear on Rewind-A in the trivia gauntlet. It must be the show before last because Jake didn't appear, but he was He was in John's mix of songs.
Yeah.
But I didn't know this. I didn't
see
know
what his most famous songs are. One Night, Poland, Minnesota.
See, you could be making these up and I wouldn't.
Broccoli, but by Dram featuring Little Yachty. I Spy by Kyle featuring Little Yachty. From the D to the A by T Grizzly featuring Little Yachty.
Well, Melo wasn't wrong. They're all FT.
He wasn't. So okay. Well, I'm sure he's very talented. All right, let's go to what is it? Very strong promo for Melo. I felt, he's kind of honing in on the fact that he is not as popular as Trick. He doesn't, he's not as sort of but he's using that as his advantage. He's saying, I'm the workhorse. I'm the workhorse who doesn't benefit from the aura. I don't benefit from the star power, but I will outwork you. And I think that's a strong direction to take Melo at that.
I think so too. It builds on what he said last week as well about making that title and so on.
Yeah. Fraxium is in the back with R-Truth, and they are here to collect their money after Team USA beats. Who did they beat?
Well, they were beaten by Belgium.
Oh, right. That's right. Belgium lost today, by the way, to Spain.
Yeah.
So anyway, somehow, R-Truth says at least the Europeans have never won a Super Bowl. Right? Yeah. Okay. This is when the Vikings arrive, who are not actually Europeans. Nonetheless, they are Vikings. They're real Vikings. And they're sick of these games. They want their tag match. These guys look so lame.
So bad.
Oh man, and they just leave. Like their role is to just like be like, hey, did you forget about us? You know, every single week. Um, Jimmy and Jacob then show up. You know, real people that people care about here on the show. They're looking for Solo Sikoa, of course. Truth says, oh, didn't you hear? Solo's kids yeeted on themselves, and Solo is babysitting tonight. Jacob then asks if he's seen Royce Keys. Truth says he's never seen him a day before in his life. This is when Priest walks in and just tells Jacob that I heard you're looking for Royce. He's here tonight. So Truth asks, why did you do that? And Priest says he's not their problem. Let it go.
Yeah, Priest coming off as a bit of a tattletale here.
Snitch.
Yeah, snitch.
Well, he doesn't. He really doesn't.
You know what happens to snitches?
He really doesn't like Royce Keys, of course. So, Nick Aldis is with Sami. Well, Nick Aldis is on the phone with Sami Zayn, and Aldis tells us that Sami has asked for a mental health break, and I'm sure it was hysterical. You know, just like it seems like they are maybe continuing this. Like, I mean, Sami, you know, feels like he's screwed. Like you saw it in the big promo, you know, backstage. Are you cool with, like, do you like that direction for Sami Zayn? Is it kind of what you're expecting?
I just hope he doesn't get lost in the shuffle in all of this. I think that they still need to have a somewhere above the mid card for him to be in all of this mix. But yeah, I mean, I just love his work so much. Like the entirety of this social media clip is so great. They didn't show the whole thing, but when he's yelling and he's calling Punk an MFer and stuff, and then he just collapses in tears. They didn't show that part, you know. He's just, you know, collapses in the background and his shoulders are moving, and it's just such great work that for him to be just relegated to some shitty program. I mean, if they God forbid went down the road of pairing him with Johnny Gargano or something, I would despair. I think there's still an awful lot here to build on with this guy.
Yeah. It is to me, it's a situation where like clearly they're still portraying Sami as this like complaining heel on television just by, you know, seeing some of this. But it is to me quite counter to like what the audience wants from him at this point. And I think the audience wants like a babyface Sami Zayn role. I hope they are like aware of that and they're simply maybe making the audience wait for it. But like a lot of this does like remind me of like, you know, some of the Vince days when like he's continuing to go against maybe what the audience's wishes are, and like he's still pushing Daniel Bryan as a heel despite the fact that everybody online sees him as a babyface. Again, you know, at this stage, maybe it's part of their playbook to ultimately like give Zayn a big moment. But you can never be sure, certainly, with somebody like him. In the arena, we got a Jimmy and Jacob who are calling out Solo Sikoa. Instead, Royce Keys comes out. Royce says he has issue with Jimmy because he mentioned his name last week and he mentioned his name this week. Although I don't think Jimmy mentioned his name this week, did he? He didn't say Royce Keys, did he? This week? Doesn't matter.
I'm not sure.
Okay, it doesn't matter. He says their family business is affecting everybody around here, including him. Jimmy says it's OTC business. And Royce says, well, the OTC isn't even here. And the mention of the OTC alone is enough to offend Jacob, who says, hey, me and you are tight. Keep it that way. You could say anything about anyone, but when it comes to the OTC, don't go there. Royce says he gets that this is family business and he's not there, but he talks about losing his own family members and how instead of fighting them, he wishes he could give them a hug or a text, but he's got no family. And for the last 14 years, Jacob has been like a brother to him, and he will not let Jacob fall to the Bloodline's bullshit, I guess. Jimmy warns him about crossing a line that he can't come back from. Key says he did not come to fight, but then he points to the line on the floor and he crosses it. Jimmy threatens to fight, but Solo says he won't get involved, and Jacob says he won't get involved, and he leaves. Jimmy tries to cheap shot, but Royce is ready for it, and this leads us to our match tonight. First, your thoughts on the promo exchange before we get to the match.
I thought it was good, and I like to see the fact that Jacob is still, like, he has pledged his allegiance to OTC. That was the stipulation. That is what he's done, but he's not all in with being bossed around or being told what to do by anyone else within the Bloodline. And he does have this history with Royce Keys, so I feel like that was very much true to the character. The fact that hey, there's no we here. I'm not having anything to do with this. You two guys can go at it if you like. So I enjoy that very much. I think Fatu's great. The one thing I also just wanted to say, when I blame myself for this for banging on about Sammy, was like in the previous segment before this is when Gunther walks into shot and tells Aldous that he wants to give him a chance to fix what's gone wrong and he deserves to be in the ring with the champion. There were some sound issues during that, but you could just about sort of get the gist of it, that Aldous was being given till the end of the show to make it right by Gunther.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that correction. I missed that. Or I forgot to mention it. So we get to our match, Big Jim versus Royce Keys, and after a commercial break, Royce goes for his spinning power slam, but the angle, at least from where we saw it, seemed very high for Jimmy, landing high on his shoulder. So a little bit of concern there, but he seemed to be fine for the rest of the match. They go to the floor where Keys is slamming Jimmy onto a table repeatedly. Jimmy calls for a timeout. So Jimmy wrestling like very sort of cowardly heel here, despite being cool with all the baby faces in the back. So Jimmy calls for timeout, but here comes Solo Sikoa, who's about to hit him with the spike, but Jacob comes back out, even with his music this time somehow, and they fight on the floor. Tongan Death Grip blocks the spike. Back in the ring, Jimmy uses the spear to defeat Royce Keys. Fatu continues to beat down on Solo, but Keys stops him. Fatu says, acts like he doesn't want to fight Keys, but then super kicks and sentons him for getting in the way of family business. Jacob then puts a chair around Solo's head, and he's about to Pillmanize Solo's head with a hip attack, but he stops short and tells Solo, "You better join the family, because next time I won't stop."
I thought the match was a bit dodgy. There was some moments in this where it was hard to buy. Honestly, the distraction allowing the spear on Royce, even that just, is hard to kind of, take a guy the size of Royce Keys being speared by Jimmy for the pin. And some of the slams on the hood of the desk, again, just didn't look very devastating, but they got to where they needed to by the end of this with all of the stuff with Solo. And I think that was the key to all of this. And I'm kind of bought into this now, is where does this go with Solo Sikoa and who is going to align with him? And I think on the left of the screen for our viewers is Royce Keys. And it looks like that could be one of the allies in the longer run. We've said for weeks on end that a credible opposition to the Bloodline with Roman Reigns is almost impossible to put together. But some sort of, below his level with the Usos and with Jacob, you can, I think, cobble something together with Solo Sikoa to build a feud. And it looks like that's the direction that they're heading in with this.
Yeah. Again, every time Royce Keys has held the microphone, I think he's done well. I think he's to me captivating to watch, but he to me has yet to really kind of build those connections either to, well, certainly to the fans.
Yeah.
But I think they've worked hard to integrate him into the existing fabric of this world through what he continues to tell us about, in this case, not just telling us that he knew Jacob Fatu from a long time ago, but that he was like a brother to him for the past 14 years when he had no other family. So all of that I think continues to be the moments where Jacob is having sort of a bit of a crisis about whether or not he wants to attack Royce. I feel like all of that's well earned by this point, and I thought that all worked well. I continue to be fascinated by the heel babyface dynamics of the Bloodline themselves, because you have Jacob, who's pretty much a pure babyface just out of loyalty to Roman Reigns, so he's working with Roman Reigns. But then you have Jimmy and Jay, who are constantly, certainly more on the heel side these days, but certainly flipping babyface in the case of Jay, when appropriate. Here Jim was purely a baby heel, and it's worked to, I think, make Solo Sikoa a pretty successful babyface thus far. He certainly got a big reaction for popping up out of nowhere, delivering the spike. But then you got Jacob, who's also a babyface in the mix all here. So all of this is very interesting for me to see how they're navigating. But ultimately, when we're talking about star power, yeah, like it's still very heavily weighted to one side here with the Bloodline. What do you think about like Seth Rollins? Like, would he be a big difference maker, or are they still shorthanded, even with him and LA Knight?
I think Seth would be a big difference maker. Yes,
Yeah,
he's up there. He's a proper main eventer. You know, you could see him making it. I hadn't thought of him, but yes, I think that's a really good shout. Yeah. The only other thing I would add here is, I feel like when, I wouldn't quite call it a turning point or anything like that, but when Royce Keys came out, it's to crickets, which is kind of the usual reaction, unfortunately. But I think with that kind of sort of rather real promo about having lost real members of his family, and that, you know, the crowd seemed to get on board with him a little more than usual as this went along. Even during the match, even though I thought the match wasn't great, they were pulling for Royce by the end of it. So, you know, some progress at least.
he's a capable talker, but like telling a sob story, I think can only get you so far. Like you have to entertain people. You have to give them a reason to like you, right? Rather than just feel sorry for you, which is kind of what all he's done so far, right? So I think that needs to come in the form of like having more spectacular matches, you know, or maybe being a more entertaining promo, even though like I don't know if that's necessarily a style, or just being like more dominant in the ring or more spectacular in the ring, like a, you know, like more of your entertaining big men, like an Obafemi, or like, you know, yeah. Anyway, so I feel like he's got still like a lot of like levels to unlock before maybe he feels sort of deserving to the audience of like, you know, more applause, more praise, more ovation. So see if they can get there.
Yeah, and let's not to labor it, but that was my grumble with the match, particularly the finish. Like, a distraction should not be enough for Jimmy Uso to spear a guy the size of Royce Keys and get a pinfall. But anyway, nitpicking.
CM Punk is in the back with Kathy Kelly, and Kathy asked about Gunther and Sammy's words earlier tonight. Punk just tells them to all get in line. This is when he encounters Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. Candice says Johnny Gargano is the real voice of the voiceless, and he talks about how Sammy winning and being champion was hope for all of us underdogs, and you stole that from us. Seemingly, like, I would say, like, representing a, you know, a good chunk of the like the online audience. Yes. It feels, you know, with this little exchange. So Punk's retort to that was, you had hope for 9 days, good for you, you know, like basically just kind of like completely dismissing them, which to me was like maybe the most heelish thing about Punk on this particular show. So you can read into that if you want to, but maybe it was just his attempt at, I don't know, like coming up with a cool babyface dismissal of for heels. I don't know. Punk says he remembers Johnny wrestling and tells Candice to get back into the ring and stop doing all of this because whatever all this is not working. So then he runs into Finn Balor. Balor says, "Welcome to SmackDown, champ." So any thoughts on what this might mean with Gargano and Candice?
I don't know that it means a whole lot, but I think there's, I agree with you that they're kind of speaking for, I certainly felt that they were speaking for a portion of the online audience, and Punk's response sort of got kind of meta. Whatever this is, it's not working. And that's also, you know, what a lot of people have been saying for weeks on end, this planking Gargano for months at this stage, and Candice not wrestling. You know, it's Punk has a point. You know, it's not working.
No, I like at this point, I don't know. I've kind of given up hope on like them being able to turn around this Johnny Gargano story. I think whatever they're investing in it, I don't think is worth whatever they're trying to set up with Gargano. It does seem very clear though that they are setting up a Candice LeRae return to action, which I at this point I can kind of take her leave. Like she's really yet to impress me with any of her like wrestling performances on WWE main roster. So again, like we'll see if that can change. Kind of losing my patience with the wrestlings with all of this. Let's go to up next, Fatal Influence, who cut a promo on Brian Page ahead of the Madison Square Garden show next weekend. Then we got Alexa with Charlotte taking on Jade with the baddies here. Jade turns her back on Alexa to trash talk Charlotte. So really kind of like, being dismissive of Alexa early on here. They basically booked this one like based on size, with Alexa working extra hard to chop Jade down. Alexa dives with the high cross, but gets caught by Jade. Alexa then escapes and tries to deliver the sister Abigail, but Jade escapes. This is when B-Fab and Charlotte both get involved behind the ref's back, and they build to a nice near fall for Alexa for a 2 count. Charlotte then takes Michin out on the outside. B-Fab takes Charlotte out. Alexa attacks B-Fab, and that final distraction works as the pump kick in Jaded is delivered by Jade to get the victory.
Yeah, not much of a match, and a kind of predictable, schmoz of the baddies and Charlotte getting involved on the outside. Some dodgy moments as well during the match. I felt some, frankly, clumsy stuff from Jade. I say that all the time. I don't mean to get on her case. I think a commenter was sort of saying, "Well, why do you always get on to Jade and Chelsea?" Well, it's because there are some far better workers than them, and occasionally some of the stuff just doesn't look great. I think Rhea's absence at the top of the women's division is quite glaring at the moment on SmackDown. But this is all in service of the inevitable match between Jade and Charlotte at SummerSlam, at least we assume.
Yeah, there was a pretty big angle at the end of all of this. As Charlotte is held back, Jade puts a chair around Alexa's arm and then snaps it. So, of course, Alexa, for those who remember like her making use of this in the past, she is known for having a bendy, double-jointed type of arm, and she sells this attack by making it look broken afterwards. And, I think since we haven't seen her like use this in quite some time, I thought this was a great attack angle. Lots of strong heat built, in my opinion, and to me, it was certainly the most like menacing we've seen Jade and the baddies since they become a faction. And I would say like some of the most sympathetic, we've seen Alexa and Charlotte, by extension. So all of this like as a way to kind of build heat for that match, I thought was really well done. How did you feel?
The post-match was much better and effective than the match itself. And like you said, I remember Alexa doing this in NXT. I remember her doing it just once on the main roster, not long after the call-up as well. So this will have faded from some people's memory, and it does look disgusting, this double-jointed elbow. And I think the Tessitore and Barrett did a really good job of selling how sickening, this injury was. So, yeah, it was very well done.
Yeah, Alexa, of course, like was taken out. It feels like not that long ago in similar fashion, and maybe certainly this one you would expect to last a bit longer than that one. It should at least to really sell the broken arm. I wouldn't expect to see her until after SummerSlam or however long they want to really sell like a broken or hyperextended arm. But as a way to like again generate interest and heat in the Charlotte Jade program, I actually thought this was tremendous and made Jade look great, and the baddies look great. So strong segment on the show. Trick is in the back with Yachty, and Trick cannot find his championship. Yachty says he went ahead and got Trick what they call a legacy title. I don't know if that's like a term that's commonly known, but essentially got him a custom championship.
Yeah.
And here you see it for our video listeners. It is a fur US championship that I'm sure is on WWE Shop for like $1,000 or something.
It is only $699.99. So you can get this for American, yeah.
So
700
steal.
bucks.
700? Well, that's pretty much $1,000 Canadian here. Yes, the CAD. Let me see. Yeah, that's like $1,000 Canadian.
Yeah.
But well worth it. Look at this.
You ordered it?
You know what? I'm gonna
get two.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to skip my mortgage payment this month to try to get one of these. What do you think?
I think it looks terrible, and I pity anyone who spent. Well, unless you've got money literally to burn. I don't see this holding up very well. This $700 belt with that fur with yellow and fray and stuff like that.
I'm sure they will sell this thing out. Especially, I mean, they he claims that it's being produced in limited supply. At this point, they're just kind of selling based on collectability rather than like whether or not the title looks good. I think I think they're just like you make anything scarce enough, and there are people that will probably want to collect it.
Trick Williams has the advantage of making practically anything look cool. So, I mean, he can carry this off. So, I mean, fair play.
Yeah. How long until they sell lemon pepper steppers?
I'm surprised they're not already doing it.
Yeah. I think it works for Trick. Like this sort of
Sure.
like goofy furry championship. Yeah, to me, it works for him. So then we get our match. It's Melo versus Trick, not for the furry championship here. It's a non-title match. Saints watches in the backs just to kind of remind us that he's still around. He's still here. He's still involved in all of this. And then Trick at one point tries a kip up early on, but doesn't get all of it. This takes us to commercial break where both are evenly matched. I would say here as longtime rivals, they're exchanging near falls. Trick delivers a jumping neck breaker for a 2 count. Melo goes for a frog splash, also gets a 2 count. Hayes wins a kicking exchange and then misses the frog splash this time. Trick's spin kick gets a 2 count. On the floor, Melo knocks Trick into Yachty. So Yachty is taken out. Melo hits the first 48 inside the ring. He goes up top to deliver the nothing but net. But here to stop him is the returning Baron Corbin, who comes out here. He's wearing his like original NXT look with like the t-shirt and the cargo pants, like the lone wolf look.
Yep.
So he drags Melo off the top. This causes a DQ. He starts attacking Trick. Corbin then takes Trick out while he throws him into the corner, delivers the end of days to Melo, then the end of days to Trick as he holds up the furry US championship as this crowd starts chanting, "Holy shit." So, we had known that I think like Baron Corbin was going to be coming in at some point. I feel like it was maybe rumored or something that he'd be revealed as what, like either Danhausen's guy or like
he might be
whatever.
under the sheet for Danhausen's
I never bought into
experiment.
that. I didn't see that. I'm kind of thankful to see that that's not been confirmed, and instead he's coming back out here as Baron Corbin, seemingly like reprising maybe the best version of Baron Corbin, which is his original version.
But minus the skullet, this is pretty much NXT and early call up Baron Corbin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't say I'm blown away. I wasn't getting out of my seat and saying, holy shit, at home seeing this. But, and he's gone firmly into the US title program, right into the heart of the mid-card. I don't know. I'm not convinced what the long-term play is for this guy beyond this, this immediate kind of... mix up with Trick that it looks like he's going to be in.
Yeah.
But I'm not entirely sold. I never really have been on Baron Corbin, but the crowd reacted pretty big, like you said. So
yeah, like even when like the sort of stories were out there about Baron Corbin coming back, I guess like similar to your names like an Enzo and Cass, also like. Despite, I guess, people, like leaving, we just, talked about Sheamus leaving. They seem to also have some sort of like openness to welcoming people back in. Now, of course, just because it's part of the conversation, it does make me wonder whether he's coming in for the same or less money than he was making prior to his release. Like, is this just another way of a contract restructuring? Like we don't want to keep you for this amount of money, so we're going to like release you, and then you can come back for something else later. I don't know. That's just, but these are questions that I just kind of feel like are in the air, like just based off of like this company's moves so far.
very relevant question, Wade, considering what we know has been going on of late with the talent and restructuring contracts and people leaving on account of it, like the New Day and Sheamus, or eating it, eating the pay cut, and It's pure speculation, but all I will say is it wouldn't surprise me in the least that if this guy is earning less than he used to when he was in WWE.
Corbin, to me, isn't exactly the type to like inspire any sort of bidding war. Like, I don't think they're taking him away from AEW, you know, like, and therefore, like, I just wonder what the sort of like, what leverage he may have had, you know. We will never really know, but creatively though, I do kind of like him in this mix, and to me, it's because like he certainly looks motivated. He looks in shape. He has a name. He has a finish that the audiences react pretty well to. One of the more protected finishes, actually, in WWE. And I think having him join like this sort of roster of like, well, still relative newcomers like Melo and Trick and Saints, I think helps add some familiarity to the division and their subsequent wins. Like we kind of see Rusev have that effect on over on Raw. So I certainly think like Corbin is kind of in that role. He's like sort of the Rusev of SmackDown, and I feel he's capable. I'm curious to see what sort of work he produces. Of course, I see him as really just here to like put over your next crop of guys like Trick, but you can always prove yourself to be above that. And I think, you know, there's always a chance for somebody to go beyond what I think they're being hired for. So we'll see. Like I'm curious to see what Baron Corbin at this point, 2.0, 5.0 even.
Yeah, we're back to 1.0 really, going by his clothes. But it's you make a very good point. I think that, you know, he's an experienced hand. He knows the system. He can work with these newer guys who are on the come up, and yeah, that's a good spot for him to be in. But he's not a big difference maker in the sense that, you know, he would be a really hot free agent.
On the match, I thought like it was actually quite entertaining. To me, it was one of like Trick's stronger matches, and obviously they have great chemistry, Trick and Melo. But it was also like I felt Trick working up to Melo's pace of action. Yeah, you know, Trick is certainly the bigger star, but Melo I think like continues to show week in and week out that he's one of the most consistent in-ring performers on SmackDown, and I feel like that's a reputation I hope they continue to foster for him, because that I think is how he will ultimately like get over, and you know, it could be to an even greater degree than, you know, anybody can predict right now.
I agree. He's tremendous in the ring, and the two of them together here I thought were very good. Yeah.
So our main event segment here, Gunther comes out after, giving all this till the end of the episode to fix this situation. And he calls Nick Aldis out to make his decision. And this is when Nick Aldis comes out, says he's going to give Gunther exactly what he wants, which was a match with Cody or a match with CM Punk. And he says he's going to give him Cody and he's going to give him Punk at a match in Madison Square Garden for Saturday night's main event, where Cody and Punk will team up together against the team of Gunther and Sami Zayn. Gunther, of course, is not happy about this not being a title opportunity. Nick Aldis makes some sort of like dig at him for, you know, the only mistake he's made was signing him to SmackDown and thinking he wouldn't be a pain in the ass. So Gunther attacks Nick Aldis. Aldis takes a clothesline, then he's immediately put into the sleeper hold. And Gunther is, we get a big pull apart. Aldis gets up. Gunther delivers a big boot, then locks the sleeper in again, putting Aldis out this time. Gunther lets go, only to relock the sleeper in. So they're doing the whole, you know, thing they do with the finishers, except with submissions this time. Gunther lets go once more, only to lock it in again. The credits roll, Lee Fitting, Paul Levesque, etc., etc. Cody comes out, but then the show cuts off. So I guess you could put it together like what happened here, but still, like, this was a very unclean way to close the show that to me certainly did not at all seem intentional for WWE production. What did you
No way this was meant to finish the way that it did. I wonder if Abyss was backstage.
I'm sure somebody was freaking out.
Mr. Pritchard.
Yeah, this was not SmackDown. So sorry. This was to me. Somebody thought the show was still 3 hours or something.
Yeah, I've got to wonder if it was meant to go off air during the somebody help sort of segment, and then maybe for the live crowd, Cody was supposed to come out and put an end to it. I really don't know, but yeah, so the time cues were definitely effed up here. And it felt very unlike them. It was a bit of a mess, really, because we didn't get to see Cody do anything. You know, he was really just on making his entrance as his music played, and that's when it faded to black.
Yeah, so this was kind of, uncharacteristically messy for an out for the WWE. But I mean, again, we could probably predict what happened here. Cody came and made the save for all this. I do think the big question continues to be, what is the direction for Gunther at SummerSlam, and is it Nick Aldis?
That seems to be the clue. The clues that we're being fed week after week. The altercation after a Night of Champions, and like you said, by the other night, and we knew that was real because they were swearing at each other. Because fucking fuck you, and then it looked for at least a moment that there was a lot of heat between Adam Pearce and Aldis. Mm-hmm. But I feel that this is a direction that they're going to go in. I remember an interview with Nick Aldis when he joined the company saying very clearly that he was being hired to do a particular role, but he had not retired from the ring. He was keeping himself in ring shape and all the rest of it. He did quite a bit of it, before the sleeper hold was locked in repeatedly. He took quite a few moves and did so, very competently. So I could see that being a direction that they go in. It can only end in one way, so I don't know the intrigue that's really there, but it's certainly a novelty to have your GM, who has been sort of taunted by Gunther as a failed wrestler, in the role of, getting into the ring and being more than, I think, a lot of what the mainstream audience will have seen. They know he's a big guy, he fills out that suit, but I think a lot of people are, may well be fairly impressed by this guy, when he comes to the ring in a singlet or something like that,
So that's the whole part of me that feels like the questionable part of this, because even in this little exchange, and like, I know Gunther blindsided him, right? But it was not at all competitive. Like, this was a lot more like Gunther attacking a civilian than Gunther attacking somebody who would be asked to be at least somewhat competitive with him in the body of like a SummerSlam match, right? Like, so I just don't know how they would be able to explain to us that, like, in a few weeks, that like somehow this guy would be in good enough shape to face somebody who, is like at the very top of this division, unless you're booking a squash match, right? And they could, like, maybe that's the intrigue, like Gunther just like defeats him for 90% of it, and yet like all this, I don't know, shows enough will to outlast and maybe even, come up with a nice near fall. But like, I just wouldn't, in their world, with their style of booking, anticipate this to be like a competitive match. All that said, I mean, they do have Pat McAfee like pretty routinely like be competitive. They have their celebrities come in and be pretty competitive. Yeah, so maybe, but he's not a celebrity, so will they give the same leeway to Nick Aldis? I don't know. It just seems kind of like not of the current playbook, but it is an intrigue. It is a novel sort of like unique idea for a match.
I think it's the novelty value of having your general manager being able to compete, and they've alluded to the fact that he was a competitor, so that he is a wrestler. But I agree with you as to the match itself. There is a foregone conclusion beyond kind of, maybe a bit of offense, that brief hope spot. That's all you're really going to get. But I won't lie. I mean, I'd be fairly curious to see what it looks like, So I think, it's something different.
So that was tonight's edition of SmackDown. The announcement we got, of course, was Cody versus CM Punk, the main event of SummerSlam. We also have, for Saturday night's main event, what we would assume to be the main event of that particular show, Cody teaming with CM Punk against Gunther and Sami Zayn. Your thoughts overall on tonight's edition of the show?
It was a good episode of SmackDown, and again, benefiting somewhat from the shorter run time. It does make a big difference. The star power from Punk is absolutely undeniable. Joining Cody on the show, who's also a top guy. Gunther's also up there. then you do have a bit of a gulf to the mid card on this show, and like I mentioned, Rhea's absence is certainly felt. They got to the SummerSlam match very quickly, but I think that's probably wise to shift tickets. The Bliss injury angle was very good. A bit underwhelmed by Corbin's return, into the title scene, but I understand it, and we discussed that at some length. The Solo Fatu stuff was good. Solo needs help, and I think that's an interesting little twist there. And again, on the wrestling front, I thought Finn and Tama was a really solid match, and I would not at all be against seeing them run that back. So yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed this episode of SmackDown.
Agreed with you. Yeah, I thought like in ring in particular, some of the mid card stood out pretty well. And in fact, to me, I kind of felt my highlight of the show to be the Alexa Bliss Jade Cargill attack. I really enjoyed that. Beyond that, of course, you had your main event set up for both SummerSlam and also Saturday night's main event. No Sami Zayn on this show, but I mean, I feel like he should be taking a week off after losing in that fashion, but I'm very curious to see what audience reactions will be to him when he comes back, because I think it can kind of go both ways. In particular, New York City, Madison Square Garden, I'm very curious to see maybe how the crowds react to him. But he is opposing CM Punk, who I think will still be beloved pretty much everywhere he goes. So.
Yeah, and he's being paired with a monster heel.
That's right. All right, so we're going to get some feedback over in the Post Wrestling Cafe XL edition. Again, join us, all throughout the course of the month for G1 coverage that starts this weekend. Karen Peterson and Bruce Lord will be talking about this weekend's G1 opening round. In fact, that show will be available for free for everybody on Monday morning. But throughout the rest of the month, it'll be the Post Wrestling team getting you caught up on every single match in the tournament. So sign up for $8 a month, postwrestlingcafe.com, where later on tomorrow, we'll also have the latest edition of MCU Later with Rich Fan and WH Park talking about episode 4 of X-Men 97. Are you watching the show?
I'm not, but I've thoroughly enjoyed the first season, so it's definitely on my list. I really want to get caught up with it.
Okay, so if that's not your cup of tea, well, maybe Dark Side of the Ring Season 7 is, as John Pollock and I spent a good chunk of time talking about TNA this past week. In fact, we put the first hour of our discussion talking about episode 1 of Jeff Jarrett and the Battle for TNA out on the free feed. Join us every single week on the Double Shot as we talk about that show and also the return of WWE Unreal. All of that at postwrestlingcafe.com, where we'll be heading right now.